Here now, so let's call the meeting to order. Are we live and unmuted?
There you go.
Okay, great. So we will declare that we have a quorum present. We have all members here and accounted for. Are there any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, we move on to the approval of the minutes for the open and closed sessions from July 22nd. Those have been distributed already in advance for your review. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to either the open or the closed meeting minutes from July 22nd?
I have none.
Seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to approve both the open and closed minutes from the meeting on July 22nd, 2021.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. So we move on to our administrator's report, and I do want to add that the report is always available in writing, and if each person that's presenting would just go through the highlights, that would be appreciated. And who is starting out?
Hi, good afternoon, Nikki Charleston. Just want to bring to your attention, there's several things listed under the announcements and important information, a legislative report, as well as some 2020 election data released by the federal government. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to first thank all of you for coming to the biennial meeting a couple weeks ago. And importantly, also thank all the people from our office and the local boards that did the hard work putting it together. Mary Wagner, who's not on the call today, took the lead from our side and did a yeoman's job of coordinating, it's herding cats. And so appreciate all the work that she did to get us to do what we needed to do and work very closely with the Mayo Planning Committee to pull off an excellent conference. And so just wanted to publicly recognize all the work that they did. And I hope that you all enjoyed it and found it to be useful. And
if I could add in there, I was incredibly impressed by, and I want to say this on the record, the job that was done by everyone involved, from the Mayo staff, from Rui to everybody at Mayo and everybody on the state staff. Mary Wagner just did an incredible job. I thought there was a lot of great education going on, a lot of learning, a lot of planning. I know it was a very big endeavor to pull off, and I know I speak for the whole board in saying that it's kudos to everyone involved. It was just very well done and very well planned and very well organized. Thank you very much to everybody that was involved, and thank you for everybody that was there as well.
okay, so sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. So I'll turn it over to Jen if she wants to highlight, and then Mary's not here, so it'll come back to me after Jen.
Sure. Thank you, Nikki. Sorry, there we go. There's an update in your report about the ongoing study, the usability study that we've been working on all summer. And later I'll be presenting to you guys the revised mail-in ballot application that we discussed at the last board meeting, as well as asking for you to consider a policy defining large residential institutions. I believe we have, again at this meeting, we have Catherine Summers from University of Baltimore who's helping us with all of our forms and documents, and she'll be able to contribute as well.
Thank you. So in Mary's absence, I'll just refer you to the administrator's report where she provides the usual updates each month on voter registration, including data on transactions that occurred at MVA, our largest voter registration partner, and some information about non-citizens registering voting. And I would say if you have questions, feel free to ask them. I'm not sure I can answer them, but we can get the answers for you if you have any. And if not, I'll turn it over to Jared.
Thank you, Nikki.
Just some of the highlights is that the candidate filings are still ongoing. We have 104 candidates that have filed. We're sending out some communications basically to candidates through MD Chris and through our social media pages now, telling them to start to file and not wait till the last minute to file. So we're trying to spread out and that it's appointment only as well. So we're trying to make sure that all the candidates or would-be candidates are going to start thinking about filing sooner than later. Public on campaign finance, the next report's still not due until January of 2022. The county programs are doing well. We have 3 certified candidates in Montgomery County and 3 candidates that have filed a notice of intent in Howard. So, but no one has asked for certification yet. Website activity, the figures are there, but from July to August, as you can see, the numbers are increasing on the MD Chris side there. So as it gets after Labor Day, more and more people are paying attention now to the electoral season here. The enforcement actions of all the ones that have been paid for civil violations against those committees there. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And then a couple of notes. One, I am serving as a political finance expert in the Organization of American States election monitoring mission for the parliamentary elections in the Bahamas. So this is my 5th mission and I leave tomorrow. So it should be fun and it'll be interesting in the rain and with COVID as well. And we also had talked about petitions and potential regulations and for petitions. Mary and I and Andrea had crafted some petition regulations, but we wanted to get a little bit of the buy-in from actual petitioners out there to see if we were on target. So we will be able to present those at the October board meeting, whenever that is scheduled.
Great.
And with that, I'll turn it
Yes.
over to Keith. Or
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and the other board members. I submit to you the report for the Project Management Office, just to include the poll book project and that it is still in the evaluation phase. And I believe that there will be discussion during closed session for any questions concerning this. And if you have any questions at this point, I will address them as I can.
Who does it go to next?
That actually completes the report for this month. The conference took up a large amount of our time planning it and presentation. So it's a little lean, but we've been busy.
Great. Very busy. Yes. Thank you very much. I did track that here. So are there any questions for the administrator or anybody who presented during the administrator's report? Seeing none, we will go to the Assistant Attorney General's report.
Hello, everyone. I'm a new face to many of you. My name is Adam Snyder. I'm in the same division of the Attorney General's office that Andrea Trento is. Andrea is on a much deserved and needed vacation, so I'm filling in for him. Some of you know that I've filled in the past a few times, haven't for a couple of years, so some of the board members are new to me. It's nice to meet you in what passes for meeting these days, and we'll get down to business here. Andrea tells me that none of the 4 cases that he's described in a fair amount of detail in the handouts has changed all that much since the last time he gave an update. The principal development in the Fusaro case is that we've been notified that oral argument has been scheduled in the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals for September 23rd. Andrea will be arguing that case. I'll be participating in the moot court, and I'm sure Andrea will give an update after that case is argued. The The NFB, National Federation of the Blind case that you're familiar with, has settled, and last Wednesday, the Board of Public Works approved the settlement. So at this point, we just have to implement the terms of the settlement, but that litigation is tied up. Chung Soo Yi case, again, nothing much to report there. He had kind of two sets of cases that he brought. One of them is before the Court of Special Appeals. It's been fully briefed and we're just waiting on a decision. The court has indicated that it does not intend to hold oral argument, which is usually a good case, a good sign for the appellee in the case, which is the state board here. As for the other raft of cases that he brought, there were various preliminary motions and appeals, and those were ultimately denied. So that one seems to be foreclosed at this point. So basically, we're just waiting for the appellate decision from the Court of Special Appeals. The last case that Andrea includes in his report is the WinRed case. That case too has been fully briefed, both the state's motion to dismiss and WinRed's motion for a preliminary injunction. And those were filed in the federal court for the District of Minnesota. And right now we're just waiting on a decision out of the court with respect to both of those motions. So that case too, kind of in a holding pattern right now. That's about all that's going on. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have, but you'll probably see that my grasp of the cases is somewhat brittle.
So are there any questions about to the Assistant Attorney General filling in today from our normal Assistant Attorney General? Are there any questions for Mr. Snyder? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I appreciate you pinch hitting for for Mr. Trento, who I'm sure is enjoying himself this week. I hope he is. So we'll move on to the approval of proposed changes to COMAR. Who is handling that with the staff?
So I will handle that. You should have in your meeting materials a memo from me dated August 14th, and then a separate document that actually has the specific proposed changes. So the first one is to 33010101, which is the definition section. And this was something we discussed at our July meeting, and the desire to define mail-in voting and mail-in ballots, since that's the public phrase, but we have to keep absentee voting and absentee ballot around. So those changes bring those definitions into COMAR. The second proposed change is to 33050404, which should look familiar to you. You previously approved a version of these in May. And what we learned when the Legislative Council reviewed it as part of the legislative review process, identified, shared with us information that we didn't know, more about the specific intent of the provision. And so that's why we withdrew these regulations before publication, so we could bring them back to you and have them reflect what the legislative intent was with this common access card and our certain military voters being able to use that. The difference is the intention of the legislature is that card, the common access card, be used on all transactions, where our interpretation was that it was just on changes to existing registrations and requests for absentee ballots from registered voters. So this change just makes it reflect the intent of the legislature, and submitting that for you for, I guess, second approval, but slightly different. And then the third proposed change to 33110203 is to bring it into compliance with code. We should have done this before when we made the same changes in Regulation 02, which is the formal request process. There's an informal request process where this was not brought into, and that's what these regulations are intending to do. So those are the changes to the three different regulations, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Any board member have any questions about the 3 proposed Comar changes?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you, Nikki, and the staff for sort of coordinating the absentee and mail-in ballots so that it would eliminate confusion among the voters. Thank you for that. Very quick turnaround too.
Are there any other questions on the three proposed Comar changes? So if there are no questions or issues, the chair would entertain a motion to accept as presented the proposed changes to Comar in 33.1.1.1b, 33.05.04.04, and 33.11.02.03.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I didn't hear, I heard all ayes, and I know that there's no one else left to oppose, so it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
So now we move on to our approval of the SBE policy defining large residential institutions.
Hi, thank you. Thank you all board members. Again, Jennifer McLaughlin, I think I met most of you at the Mayo conference. Nice to see you again. This is a proposal that is coming from the 2021 legislation passed called the Student and Military Voter Empowerment Act. That act requires local boards of election, when they are establishing precinct boundaries or designating the location of polling places, to contact and obtain input from large residential institutions. Specifically in the bill, it references higher education residential facilities, senior facilities, and military facilities. In order to assist our LBEs with complying with that, we have been working to amass a database of all those facilities in Maryland that we can share with them, and also define what a large residential institution is. It's not specifically defined in the bill. So you should have in front of you the proposed policy that would adopt specific residential population thresholds for this requirement, as well as some supporting documentation. What we are proposing is that for institutions of higher education, that we use the 700 students or more number. That is something that is a policy we already have, tying back to a 2006 bill called and you should have that bill, called the Election Law Voter Bill of Rights. And you should also have that specific policy regarding school campuses in your package.
Question,
Yes.
if I may. In your proposal, you state if the institution has 700 or more students, but in the policy of 2006, it says at least 500.
Yes, my understanding is that when the board adopted that policy, they inflated that 500 number from the bill into a 700 number for policy because of the historic experience with what percentage of these populations are registered to vote. So in order to reach everyone with 500, it was actually the limit by policy was set at 700.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, okay. When it comes to senior facilities, we, again, and I should say, let me back up, I neglected to mention, in working on that database of schools, we've worked with the Maryland Higher Education Commission, with the Maryland Independent Colleges and University Associations, with the UMaryland system. So we've had a great luck getting all the data our LBEs will need to be able to reach these institutions. The second one I was going to address was senior facilities. We picked the number of, we did an assessment of all the senior facilities in Maryland. We picked the number of 250 because a lot of the smaller senior facilities are actually dealing with advanced skilled care nursing situations and not necessarily the populations that will be coming out to the polling places. We also, SB also already has a policy regarding senior facilities that all LBEs reach out to offer on-site services to any facility over 50 population. So we felt comfortable that the 250 for this specific purpose was a good number. And then finally, probably the hardest one is the military installations. We did pick the number 500 based again back off that 2006 bill, which as Mr. Vice Chairman, you pointed out, says 500. And we thought that was a good number. It is very difficult to assess specifics about voting populations on military bases. We've reached out to several people to help us, including the Federal Voters Assistance Program manager. There's understandably a reluctance for the military to share very specifics about who is on their base and what age they are and any other information. So we set that number at 500. And I believe that brings, there's at least six military establishments in Maryland that meet that criteria. If there are any questions.
Do you know the number of higher education and the number of continuing care north of 250?
So when it comes to the seniors, we totaled up 110 total facilities. 17 of those facilities would meet the 250 number. When it comes to campuses, there's 67 in our database. 17 are above the threshold for campuses. And military, there was a total of 16 facilities. We've identified at least 6 that exceed the 500 threshold.
And in light of those parameters, can I assume that you'll have a polling place here at Asbury Solomons? I know we have over 250 residents here that are not in assisted living and not in, but we are within a mile of a precinct. I think the policy originally said within a half a mile. Is Asbury Solomons listed on one of those, if I might ask?
It's in the database.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, what this year's bill, the 2021 bill requires is that all LBEs will be required to reach out to contact and obtain input from all of these facilities.
I'm just wondering if I can be lazy in the future.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I read through this that it was the idea of consideration that there wasn't some type of hard, fast rule in the legislation that would have required a precinct on or in campus or in anything like that. Isn't that correct?
Yes, this bill, specifically the 2021 bill, is only regards contacting and obtaining input. It does not mandate locations.
So you probably don't have data then, I doubt, on how many of those locations are within whatever from a precinct already?
I do not have that data. That would be something we'd have to poll our LBEs to obtain.
Sure. Thank you very much. Very thorough. I appreciate it. Are there any other questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's throw that one more time. Does anybody else on the board have any other questions about the proposed? This would be an SBE policy of defining a large residential institution. This would allow then the LBEs to use this definition to go out and ask the information and consider the feedback that they get back in their decision-making process. Does anybody have any questions around that? The Chair would entertain a motion to then approve the SBE policy defining large residential institutions as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fund. Would there be a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have unanimous support and the policy is passed. So thank you to everybody. we move into the approval of the mail-in ballot application for 2022. I think everybody has received the latest, greatest version. Is that correct?
Yep.
Who was going to be talking about that from the staff?
Again, it's Jennifer McLaughlin again, and I'm wondering if we have Catherine Summers from the University of Baltimore on the line as well.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
In what set of materials was the sample distributed? I'm having a hard time finding it in all of my materials.
I think it was the last set that went out just a
Yeah, I think it was
couple
in
of
3.
days ago. Might have been Tuesday.
Okay, the September 2nd, September 7 set?
Gonna have to look it up as well. I printed it, so I'm not looking at it electronically right now.
It was in the one that had a lot of the attachments.
September 7th.
Okay,
So-
Yeah, September 7.
okay, I have it on there. Here we go, hang on. Okay, I've got it, thank you. It was, I couldn't distinguish it from a couple other things. Thanks for the time.
No problem.
Well,
Jennifer, I'm sorry, this is Donna. Hi, I do not see Catherine on the line. David, do you have a Catherine?
No,
Okay.
That's okay. I'm fairly confident I can convey all that I've been learning from her through this usability study process. But this is the ballot request form that we showed you in July. There have been a couple tiny tweaks and iterations since then, and wanted to make sure that you all saw. One in particular, Mr. Vice Chairman, you had reminded me and reminded us that one of the options that needs to be included for these things is the drop boxes. So you'll see language on the second page of the form with all of the mail-in addresses that indicates that drop boxes are also an option when available for returning forms. You will see that every local board of election, there is a street address in addition to a PO address if they use a PO address. On the first page of the form in section 5, again, we added the option of drop boxes, the language for that. And then finally up in section 3 on that first page, the language we landed on with party affiliation was to vote in a party's primary, you must choose a political party. So we're hoping that these address some of the concerns that came up at the last meeting, and we hope that you'll approve this for immediate release.
So let me open that up to the board for any questions for the staff or for Ms. McLaughlin.
I know in the past, there was some question concern when we were talking about the ballots, choosing the ballots A, B, and C. Some people wanted the language preferred, and I can appreciate not putting that there because we are not to recommend a particular process or procedure. We just have to lay them out there to the people and let them select them. But I appreciate spelling out what has to be done if you use the email or the fax method. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Was there any talk around in section 4? The wording ends up, I would like to receive a mail-in ballot for all future and federal state elections. That feels new to me. There was talk about the word permanent list. Did that come up in the usability study, the wording of that?
Actually, it definitely did. And I will tell you what I was told by the usability expert is that for a lot of people, the word permanent has a negative connotation. If you think back to your days in school and someone suggesting that something was going on your permanent record, it can be a bit of a turnoff for some people. So they thought the simpler language was all future.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't know if Andrea provided this input. I know he's spoken to you about this form previously, but in section 3, there might still be a little ambiguity there that I'm wondering whether we can tighten up. It says to vote in a party's primary, you must choose a political party. Someone could read that if they choose any political party, they then have a right to vote in a party's primary when they have to choose that political party that they want to vote in their primary. So I think it might tighten it up a little bit to say to vote in a party's primary, you must choose that political party. That might be gilding the lily a little bit. Perhaps it's not, most people would be able to read this and understand what it's asking of them, but I think that might tighten it up a little bit.
Don't you already have to be? You can't choose, you can't be an unaffiliated voter and then vote in either the Democratic or the Republican primary.
That's true.
If you're not already in that party, an affiliate of that party, you cannot, like if I were a Democrat and I wanted to vote in the Republican primary, I couldn't choose Republican and then have that count. How are we looking at that?
Well, perhaps the language would be to vote in the party's primary that you're affiliated with. You must choose that party, because the heading is political party affiliation to begin with. Perhaps that would take out the ambiguity.
I think you're
in
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Please,
Well, I hear you both saying that you must choose that political party, and I feel confident that that would not be something that Karen or any of the experts would disagree, that possibly could make it a little more clear that you can't, like, as the chairman was saying, you have to pick a party and then that's your party for primaries. So whether some parties don't have primaries, some, yeah, I hear you suggesting that the A should become a political party should become that political party. And if that's a proposed change, I think that would be very easy to make.
So let me, Malcolm, I'll let you go. Mr. Fine, if you'd like to go ahead first.
No, I've said what I had to say.
I'm just trying to get my head around, and I may be, it's just is popping into my brain now that if you are requesting a mail-in ballot, and you are requesting a party that you are not currently affiliated with, what happens?
We use this form to update your party.
So when is the last date to change your party affiliation prior to a primary?
So there's an exception for absentee ballot applications, and we'll make that change on up to the deadline for this form.
Okay. You see where I was going with that, right? Because if we pass the date that you could change, and then we have an expectation and we have a problem. So if I can parrot that back to you, that there will be a proposal to come forward to us later to change the date to match when this form would have to be.
Regulations already exist for that.
Okay, that it already exists. So that as this form is due, somebody would be changing their affiliation and be able to vote in that primary with this application. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. Then I have no other questions. Anybody else have any other questions about the proposed form?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so I guess it's a question, and maybe it happened before.
I can't hear him.
We've lost you, Mr. Williams. it froze your internet. Maybe you could try
Do you
again.
hear, do you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. The question was, this might have been discussed before I joined the board, for section 5, the option A, should we have an instruction or a note that says, if you choose option A, you will receive the ballot and a self-addressed stamped envelope?
I
The-
think it's addressed, if I can, Ms. McLaughlin, I think that's addressed in the negative, so that it says if you choose B or C, you have to provide an envelope and your own stamp.
Makes sense to me. I'm more throwing out there because we're trying to make this as idiot proofed as possible.
I believe one concern about putting that language here on this form is that we're just running out of space, and the more cluttered something got, the more less usable it was. I completely understand your point, but I think that was probably a deliberate choice to leave that information off of this particular form.
It just strikes me as a way, if another way to nudge towards option A would be to explain or that, hey, we're gonna make it really easy for you and send you a stamped envelope back. But I won't hold up the form approval just for that.
I think that's a very good point. I think Ms. McLaughlin brings up a great point too, that we have a limited space there. And I know the board has endeavored, and the staff has certainly endeavored to, while we have a proclivity to want as many to choose option A, that way we have less work and duplication on the back end. We want to be very sensitive not to have anyone feel like that if they are disabled in any way that they were not able to vote in that way. And we want to be sensitive to that for sure. So so that's a kind of a balancing act that we have walked there to try to meet everybody's needs. Are there any other questions? A very good question so far. Any other questions?
Is there a time limit that we have to approve this to get it out? Are we under the crunch time-wise?
No, this was the plan, was to provide the final updates at the September meeting. So we have the current one on the website now. We don't have any mailings of this scheduled imminently. But it was the board's desire to approve the final version in September.
Mr. Fund, did you feel like, just trying to understand that question, do you feel like that there's other changes that you would like to see, or is there something concerning to you?
I was just thinking about the party affiliation, political party affiliation question, to clarify that. Because, there are a lot of people out there think, well, they may be unaffiliated, but they see that and they say, oh, let me register to vote for a party that I can vote in the primary. Because, some states have crossover primaries. And people moving from those states see a statement like this, and they may assume or think that they can select a party at that particular time to vote for. I was just,
And Malcolm, if we change the A to that, doesn't that help solve the problem?
it makes it more definitive. Yeah.
I think
I
that's,
think along those lines. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
Well, I was thinking along those lines that maybe if there's a separate instruction sheet, could make it clear, because that would maybe be a question too. Could I change my affiliation with this form? And it'd be nice to have it's something more thorough, like on the second page. People who actually do want to read into that and get the answer without having to call the LBE or SBE staff and say, well, can I change my affiliation on this day through this box, or do you need to do something separate?
Yeah, and I think we have a pretty good explanation of all that on the website, and on the online registration site, so people have places to go where they can get that additional information.
Isn't it true that, based on Malcolm's question, that if one were to choose a different party to vote in their primary, they would indeed be eligible to vote in that primary and would then have their affiliation changed to match that? So, indeed, what you were thinking, if I understood your question right, Mr. Fund, that this would indeed change their registration and they would be eligible then to vote in that primary, and it would change their affiliation because of how it would match the deadline.
Yeah.
So if I had any concern personally, it would only be that, hey, do you know that you're changing your affiliation? But I don't know how many more ways you could tell somebody.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. And I don't mean to kick a hornet's nest here, but why is it necessary to inform related to the primary? I mean, why, if Section 3 simply asks a voter to designate a political party affiliation, why do we need to include the information related to primary access or not? And I don't ask the question because I have an intended preference. I'm just wondering because we now have this quite a bit of discussion about something where we're really just asking someone to identify what their political party will be. Whether it has a primary or not, we're just asking somebody to identify a political affiliation.
I believe, and I'm going to let the staff key in on this, but it has been my experience that there is some confusion and people who are unaffiliated believing that they can vote in either the Republican or the Democratic primary. And they are not able to do that unless they change their affiliation to the respective party they wish to vote in the primary as. And I mean, I know I saw that at the local level. I don't know if that's what we're trying to solve here, but I'll let the staff speak to that from there.
I agree that what I've heard from many of the LBEs is that they consistently have a problem with people who aren't affiliated, haven't chosen a party, being surprised when the primaries come around and that they're not eligible. So I believe this is an attempt, a little bit of civic education that's how the system in Maryland works.
I appreciate that explanation, and all of this makes sense. I'm just wondering if we're trying to do too much with this particular explanation as a form of education, essentially, of unaffiliated voters. And I think it actually dovetails with what I have a bit of a concern about, which is someone requests a mail-in ballot. They, for whatever reason, might be a Republican, but they decide, I would like to check Democratic. For whatever reason, I want to vote in the Democratic primary. That determination gets made. And you also have the option in Section 4 to receive the mail-in ballot for all future and state elections. And you've now chosen a different political party to vote in a primary by mail-in ballot, and it shall heretofore be what your affiliation will be. But you, in a moment of pique or whatever, decide that you want to be something different affiliation for a primary, but now you are of that voter registration through the mail-in system because you were somehow provoked by the comment. If you want to vote in a primary, you got to be part of a particular affiliation. So I've kind of taken it down a perhaps illogical slippery slope. But I just think that I think we might be needing to, we're trying to do too much, I think, by explaining that that you have to pick to be able to vote in a primary. And this form is covering a lot of things here, that could be a decision that gets made in a moment. And then it seems to be potentially a long-term commitment. So that's why that particular explanation just troubles me a bit. Again, I am not going to vote no on this form. This form is much improved, and I commend all of the efforts of our SBE staff and the assistance that they received from the University of Baltimore. It is much improved, and I would not vote against it at this point. I just question whether we're trying to do too much on that point of number 3. And it's generated quite a bit of debate and discussion as well. And sometimes that we don't want to quash discussion, but sometimes when we start discussing, we have so many ideas and comments about something, maybe we're trying to do too much. So thanks for letting me express my concerns.
Thank you for expressing your concerns. Anyone else? So, I mirror a little bit of what Ms. Woodward said there, that I would like to see the word changed to that, and I will not vote against this form. I think as well that it is head over heels above where we were. And thank you for all the work that's been put into it. I do have a little concern around a political party affiliation, that somebody could think that they are, oh, well, I can vote in somebody else's primary, when in fact they're changing their party affiliation until they change it again. That's a concern for me, that I'd like to see, if we see that happening, that we would correct that on this form for the following election. I'm not saying that it'll definitely happen, but that's a concern that I have in my mind, really one of my few concerns on the form, based on, experts looking at it. So does anyone else have any comments they'd like to make?
Mr. Chairman, I hear all the discussion, and maybe we are trying to fine tune it, but perhaps we should just go with what we have, change the word to that, and look at what occurs. And we can always come back prior to the next election and take care of that situation if it becomes a situation.
Anyone else? Sure, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Just typo. It's section 2, the instruction. I guess there should be a period after the no PO boxes.
Thank you. Will do.
Thank you. You must be an attorney.
We'll put out by partners in my junior career days for these things.
Any other comments or concerns? So seeing none, the chair would entertain a motion to accept the form as presented, with a period after the word boxes in section 2, and the word choose a political party changed to choose that political party. A motion to that end?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So we are unanimously passed after much discussion. Thank you very much to everyone on that. And I believe the next item on our agenda is the approval of the Title 13 and then the Title 14 late fee waivers.
So there's nothing to approve for Title 13. There were just 2 denials. So you can move right along on that. And then on the Title 14 one, There are two for approval there. One was due to the way they attempted to change the filer. They basically deleted the old filer and then overwrote the system. They basically figured out how to lock themselves out of the system for a long time, and we had to undo a lot of what they attempted to do, which we have now corrected. So that's one. And the other one is a good faith effort that came into the office, worked with it, filed a draft document, and then just didn't file the actual document. So both those two were good faith efforts and worthy of a waiver requests. If there's any questions on them, I'll be happy to answer them.
Anyone have questions on the Title 14 late fee waiver recommendations? Mr. Harris?
Nope.
Is there a motion to approve the late fee waivers as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Damaris, and I hope you get some sun when you go to the Bahamas.
Thank you. Yes, well, I got one more for you, which is the confidentiality request.
Oh, okay. Okay, great.
So in front of you is for 3 requests. And I just want to make note that the first one, we want to approve, I would say conditionally, pending the individual providing the required documentation. We will give the applicant 45 days to present the documents to the state board necessary to continue being a confidential voter. So with that, I just wanted to say that we wanted to throw it for approval now, subject to the required documentation, and that only applies to the first request. The other 2 were judicial requests, and they were fine.
So request number 1, we would, they'd have 45 days for additional documentation. Request 2 and 3 would be permanent.
Yes.
Are there any questions for Mr. Damaris about, without using names, request 1, 2, or 3? Is there a motion to approve the request, of course, number 1, with the caveat that they have 45 days to provide required documentation?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Does somebody have banging going on?
Yes, that's me. I having some work done on my deck because it would rot it out over time.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
So yes.
Thanks. Okay. So so now may you have sun in
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
the Bahamas. So we move on to old business. Is there any old business on the schedule or to bring up? Is there any new business to bring up? Well, actually, let me move back to old business, and I probably should have asked this earlier. Where are we on the MVA, the MVA, national MVA list and being able to integrate that?
So Mary's not here, so I'll ask her to follow up with you, Bill.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there any new business? Does anyone have any disclosure of campaign contributions to make at today's meeting? Seeing none, we move on to schedule the next meeting. Our next meeting would normally be October 28th. Is that correct? Does anyone have a problem with October 28th at 2 p.m.? So then our next meeting will be October 28th at 2 p.m. Again, I assume we're still in virtual mode. And now that we have concluded the business, I am going to read a closed session script that we are going to move into closed session. I just wanted to say that there is no further open business for us to conduct in today's business meeting. So when we come back, when we close closed session, we will also have closed and adjourned the public session. We will not be coming back into the public session to adjourn, as there is no further business to conduct today. So that being said, the board will now consider whether to meet in closed session to discuss a matter directly related to negotiating a strategy or the contents of a bid or proposal, since public discussion or disclosure would adversely impact the ability of the public body to participate in the competitive bidding or proposal. This is permitted under section 3-305, subsection B and 14 of the general provisions article. Now I have a motion to meet in closed session.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimously, the motion having passed, the board will now meet in closed session in accordance with exemption B 14 of section 3-305 of the Open Meetings Act. Again, we will not be coming back into open session. And why don't we say we will meet in closed session in, is 5 minutes enough time for everybody if we met at 3:05?
Yes.
So we'll meet at 3:05 in closed session. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day.